Hello, world. Welcome to another Breakout Finder podcast. I'm your host, Nate Liss. You can find me on Twitter at @AnOutrageJew. And with me, as always, is Mr. Ryan Lopes. You can find him on Twitter at StillRyan5. And tonight, we're really mixing things up on people, man. We've had a lot of different guests, but this guy is coming from a much different angle than the ones that we have featured in the past. We have John Proctor of the Quant Edge. You can find him on Twitter at JohnProctorDFS. What is going on, man?
Dude, just enjoying a fun week one. I'm glad that everyone is tilting on Twitter. I feed off of that. It's been fun, man.
You really do. You really, really do. Man, I'm stoked. I'm stoked to get Johnny. And before we get the football takes going, bro, we got to settle pretty much the only reason I brought John on, man. We got to settle the great White Claw versus Truly versus Natterday Natties, bro. John is on one side of this thing, bro. John, make your case right now, bro, for the world to hear.
The Natterdays, man. It's like it tastes like strawberry lemonade. It's still a beer. Like you can't call me like a girl for drinking it because it's a beer.
That's fair.
You know, no one can insult me, and it still tastes delicious.
He's right, man. I elevated, man. I got a craft hard seltzer. I don't know if that makes it worse or better, or is it's the same level, but that's what your boys got.
That's too much time invested into what's going on here. I've got a Truly, and to be honest with you, White Claw has let me down so many times that I rolled to Truly, and to be honest with you, just a better product overall.
Listen, man, football aside, hard seltzers or flamingo beers aside, today, man, Nate, your birthday, bro. A very special day, buddy. Happy birthday, bro. We bought Johnny on to take his shirt off later for you, man, and dance around.
Johnny, will you do 20 push-ups for me right now, then take your shirt off?
So Nate's got the full blown, dude. It is the biggest birthday hat. I'm very stoked for this to get.
We're losing it. Stay on.
He's dabbing. He's doing everything,
man.
I didn't
pay $3 for this to fall off.
All right, man. Listen, enough of those shenanigans, man. Johnny is legit one of the sharpest dudes that I've followed him for a handful of years now, and honestly, always keeps the timeline stocked with some goodies when he's not, again, just ripping on people out there that are completely overreacting and as you so eloquently put it, man, tilting after a 1 week sample size. So here we are recording on Wednesday night. We got a game tomorrow, of course, Thursday Night Football. So we'll talk a little bit about Tampa Bay and Carolina a little bit later. But we figured, my guy Nate and I, for these in-season pods, we'll go every week here. We'll bring someone on, or him and I will kind of shotgun it ourselves. But obviously blessed with Johnny's presence tonight. So we're going to go game by game, go over the Sunday slate, just kind of hit on a bunch of key headlines, key players, kind of storylines that we're following going into week 2 here. So Johnny, without further ado, bro, starting at the top, Tennessee and Cleveland, kind of the news and notes and nuggets that I wrote down, man. Real high level, of course. Delanie Walker kind of showing out. If it wasn't Delanie, it was A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown, wide receiver 1, shoes on. Corey Davis, just coffins, bro. I'm not really sure if Corey Davis matters anymore. Derrick Henry kind of did his thing towards the end of the game. Looked like, you know, a stout kind of workhorse, like many kind of projected to start the season. And on the opposite side of the ball, bro, Cleveland, Baker Mayfield, just kind of fart noise sound effect, man. So Johnny, what was your kind of takeaways, and anything that you're following, guys that you were high on, guys you were low on, surprises, anything in between, bro? What do you got for us?
Yeah, so Scott Barrett and I had sort of talked about Delanie Walker like maybe a month ago, and we were wondering why everyone forgot he existed. Because he's always been the wide receiver 1 in this offense when he's healthy. Mm-hmm. And Corey Davis has been dust for 2 years now.
He doesn't matter. He doesn't matter at all.
Yeah, but it's nice to see, Delanie Walker is obviously he's going to sneak his way into a top 12 tight end, year, probably top 8 or 10, as long as he can stay healthy, but you just never know with him. Derrick Henry, though, it's nice to see the usage. We'll see if it keeps up. It's like every year, really the only thing that matters is whether they want to just keep giving him the ball.
Right. What on the Cleveland side, bro? Tennessee. We can talk about Mariota a little bit too, if you guys want. He may or may not have surprised some folks, but real quick, switching to the Cleveland side, man. Were you one of those that were one of many that totally saddled up and was ready to ride out there for that double-digit playoff run kind of Cleveland type season? Were you surprised by the way this Browns team kind of came out? Were you high on bait coming in, Johnny?
Yeah, I think I was more surprised by their defense being bad than I was by their offensive line. Like, I think sort of deep down we all knew there could be some offensive line issues. I mean, you're starting Greg Robinson, the dude who he's not even that important enough to your team that you can cut him and then re-sign him and like hope that he doesn't sign somewhere else. But I mean, for their defense to like give up points to, Mariota and Derrick Henry was like the bigger surprise for me, I think. Like that D-line
sure.
thought it was going to be a monster, and then they just weren't.
Yeah. I mean, I'm guessing they're gonna kind of shake off the week one rust. It was funny, Baker came out and said that they were gonna use this motivation, and people were saying you guys just got absolutely smashed. I don't know what you guys are doing talking about motivation and this and that. So it's gonna be interesting to see how they come out week 2. Obviously, they have all the weapons. We even talked about Odell. Everyone knows Odell can ball. Came out rocking like a $300,000 watch. Didn't get fined for it, whatever the case was. So tons of fun storylines. I'm still excited to watch the Cleveland Browns play football. Nate, anything on either side of the ball, bro? Tennessee, Cleveland, your $3 birthday hat, cupcakes, Trulies. What do you got, bro?
It was a $1 hat. I got at the dollar store. I will say this. I am always first in line or cutting my way to the front of the line to take shits on Corey Davis. But I will say this. Corey Davis had 3 targets with an ADOT of 14. So he was being targeted. And he was being targeted down the field at least enough that we were excited to see it. It wasn't as low as Curtis fucking Samuel, and we'll get to that later. But I think that there's got to at least be a little bit of intrigue for Corey Davis. It's unfortunate if you're an owner of him or a fan of him that you see A.J. Brown come out, get this opportunity. They weren't that far apart in terms of targets, so usage wasn't so different, but the result absolutely was. A guy that puts up 0 yards versus a guy that's putting up 100 yards. So it'll be interesting to see how they use Corey Davis next week. I'm not the biggest Mariota truther. I don't know if John is. I was surprised by what I saw out here. I'm from the Northwest, so I watched a lot of Mariota in college, and he was a stud then. He hasn't really manifested in the pros. This game was a shocker for me to see the numbers that he put up. But don't sleep on Corey Davis, man. He could turn the corner.
Yeah. So let's. I'm going to try to keep this as efficient as possible. We got a ton of games to cover, ton of players to go over. So next on the slate here, Baltimore, Miami. I'm excited to get John's take on this. I'm curious, but before I hit on the news and notes, Johnny, were you saddling up with any of these Baltimore playmakers, man? In DFS, did you cash out week 1?
I didn't end up on Lamar, but I thought he was a much better FanDuel play than he was on DraftKings. So I was surprised that he didn't end up very owned on FanDuel. Like everyone played Jameis Winston on FanDuel, even though the rushing quarterbacks are even more valuable on FanDuel because there's no 300-yard bonus. So that was interesting. But Lamar is a guy that I was hard on last year. Obviously, the passing is going to need to continue to trend up. I mean, we saw him throwing deep balls to wide open wide receivers. So It'll be interesting to see if he can keep that going against like some actual NFL caliber teams, since we only have 31 of them this year.
Yeah, dude. Again, that's the big storyline. Is we all knew the Dolphins were going to quote unquote tank, and that was the line coming in, and they gave their best effort this past Sunday for sure. Lamar just an unreal 4 or 5 touchdown day. Obviously Hollywood Brown. So Lamar Jackson was a guy that Nate and I have hit on all off season. We had Scott Barrett on a few weeks ago. That was one of Scott's guys as well. Nate and I both were in the Miles Boykin corner. And Hollywood Brown, obviously a huge debut after missing most of the off season, just kind of ghosting with an injury and rehabbing. So Hollywood, huge day. Lamar Jackson, huge day. Mark Andrews, another name that I was really high on. Again, another one of Scott's guys. He came on here and talked them up as well. Kind of a late round steal. We heard about the chemistry and stuff all off season. Outside of that, man, Mark Ingram got all the goal line work as well. Justice Hill was kind of the name that was talked of this offseason. Many in the industry, the hashtag industry, were targeting Justice Hill late. One guy you didn't want to leave drafts without. Anything else outside of Lamar, bro? We don't have to say a word about the Miami team here. So on the Baltimore side, Johnny, anything on the backfield, bro, or Mark Andrews, or kind of how you're playing this team going forward?
Yeah, I think like Andrews had a sick day, but it was a little concerning that a good bit of his production came with Robert Griffin. He only ran 18 receiving routes, which was like 27th on the day. I mean, he ran as many routes as Jason Witten. So you have to have some concern that the dude is not. I mean, he's not a full-time player. He's not going to keep putting up 100-yard days on 18 receiving routes. It's just not. It's not sustainable production. But it is nice to see that. I mean, he is one of the few tight ends in the league that can catch a 50-yard pass. Like you don't have that upside with a lot of the other guys. So Ingram, I do think that Ingram is probably a sell high after this next week, I think, in fantasy leagues. I mean, you couldn't have a better start. You get Miami and then the Cardinals. But there was definitely, Gus Edwards was getting usage inside of the 10. That's concerning. The main thing for Ingram is you want the TDs. And if he's going to lose TDs to Lamar and Gus Edwards inside of the 5 and the 10, that's a concern because we know Lamar doesn't throw the ball to running backs. For
sure. Nate, bro, you and I spent far too many hours, buddy, talking up Miles Boykin. Obviously excited for Lamar Jackson. We again, for whatever the reason, the lack of his appearance on the field, I guess you and I kind of just glossed over. Hollywood Brown just wasn't a name that you and I spent too much time talking about, man. Are you at all surprised by the way that he, again, context is super, super key here, as Johnny laid out. It's the Dolphins. They're not even an NFL caliber team right now. So Hollywood Brown's day, are you expecting this to kind of keep trending this way going forward?
I mean, if anybody thinks that wasn't the best game he's going to play all year, I mean, that is arguably going to be the highest scoring game he puts up in 2019, and I'm willing to bet on that. That was a monster game on limited target share. I think that kind of production is going to be hard to replicate, but again, I think what everybody's surprised by is Lamar Jackson did this on 20 attempts, 5 touchdowns overall. So, I mean, the whole package is just shocking. And then, again, we go back to Miles Boykin, a guy that we were a fan of. We're looking at this roster. Willie Snead's kind of that veteran that's ascended in the league here. Thought he wasn't going to make it. He stuck around. But even Willie Snead or Seth Roberts, who was right there with Boykin, only 2 more targets than Miles Boykin. So it's not like Boykin was necessarily, out-targeted by a mile. Many of these guys didn't see a lot of them. Marquis Brown, man, I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of him coming into the league for a lot of reasons. I thought his size would be an issue. Again, John said it, man. The Dolphins are not a good example of a defense for us to really gauge what Marquis Brown will be going forward. But obviously, if Lamar Jackson's going to continue trending this direction like he did in college from his start to finish, if there's growth here, Brown could be special. But, man, I just don't think we replicate what we saw on Sunday.
Yeah. Atlanta, Minnesota boys. Not a ton to talk about here. Dalvin Cook looking like an absolute stud, man. Minnesota bringing in Kubiak. Everyone knew that they wanted to run the ball. Kirk Cousins, 10 attempts. We'll talk about how that may or may not affect, obviously, guys like Thielen and Diggs going forward. Not a hot start for the pass catchers. Man, Dalvin Cook, I'm personally kicking myself. I had him and Damian Williams staring at me in the Scott Fishbowl 9. Obviously, your boy went with Damian Williams, which looks like an absolute garbage call right now. Dalvin Cook looking like that dude in Minnesota. Obviously, talked about Kirk Cousins, 10 attempts. Outside of that, Devonta Freeman, another, I guess we'll say polarizing kind of off-season running back. We know about the injury history. We know about the Atlanta offense, of course, but came out in a legit timeshare with Ito Smith, who Ito Smith, for argument's sake, might not be the best backup running back. Brian Hill kind of showed out in Atlanta, so I don't know what that says about the backfield situation. So Johnny, Kirk Cousins, Minnesota passing game, Dalvin Cook, Atlanta passing game, Atlanta backfield, whatever you got for us, bro.
Yeah, this is another one where it's I kind of want to see Minnesota against a team that shows up. I mean, the Falcons couldn't have been worse. And that's a horrifying team right now for fantasy to own anyone there. Their offensive line looked real bad all preseason, and then they come in, they look horrible against Minnesota. They end up with another injury on the O-line.
Yeah.
Guard,
Lindstrom went down or something like that, right? The guard.
That's just a major concern. And that's the big concern for Freeman. But, Cook basically had all the stars aligned for him. I mean, the Falcons allow 1 million receptions to running backs just based on scheme, and then they're up by 1 million points all game, so he's running with as good of a game script as possible. I do think, this is, the Kubiak offense for Dalvin Cook is perfect. Everything sets up well for him. The defense looks better, but we'll see if this defense is actually, a top 3 unit like they look like the other day, or if the Falcons just really, really stink. And then, it's going to be tough to own a running back in Atlanta if that O-line, sticks how it is right now.
What do you think? What do you think about Kirk Cousins? Obviously, there's no way he's throwing 10 passes again this season, or is he, man? I mean, are you still high enough on Diggs and Dahlen and the pass catchers there?
I mean, it's hard to dislike them just because we know that the market share is so condensed there. Like, the ball is going to those two guys. Like, they're still going to have that 25+% market share, both of them. But we're definitely not going to see 45, 50 pass attempts from him. So,
right.
The 15 target Dahlen games are probably a thing of the past.
Yeah, pour one out for those days, man. Nate, I know Stephon Diggs is certainly someone that I'm personally high, and I imagine that you were less than pleased with the pass attempts yourself. Either way, whatever side of the fence you find yourself on here. Any kind of takeaways, bro, as far as the passing game, the running game, either side of the ball, man? Are we worried as Johnny is about that Falcons O-line?
I mean, well, first off, let's talk about Austin Hooper being the most efficient tight end to ever play in the NFL. I mean, this guy is unreal game over game, and he was a guy that everybody should have been on early. And in this offense, if you own Julio Jones, you are so used to the volatility of Julio Jones, and we kind of saw it again here the other day. Saved himself with that weak-ass touchdown. If you were watching that game, it was like dialed up, left side of the end zone, boxed out. Even he caught the ball. He was like, fuck this. It seemed terrible. I mean, I would say that Austin Hooper was a big takeaway for me. He's just reaffirming the fact that he's a stud in this offense. But, yeah, the Kirk Cousins, 10 attempts, I don't even know what that is. Like, what the hell is going on with this offense? And Stephon Diggs, I mean, good Lord, if you drafted these guys early, I mean, Dahlen, Diggs, these were round 2, round 3 receivers for most people, because we figured by the end of 2019 they'd both be staring down the barrel of about, 130 to 150 targets. I don't fucking think they're going to get there at this rate, because they're both going to end up at about 89 targets by the end of the year and be complete busts. But I am still high on Dahlen. I'm still high on Diggs, but my God, Kirk Cousins and this offense, they have got to get the passing game going, or you're going to get more results like this.
Yeah, it's gonna be a frustrating road, like Johnny was saying, man. It's gonna go through the ground, and again they've had a complete philosophy change. Obviously, hiring Kubiak kind of signaled that. So you bought into Dahlen and you bought into Diggs because, again, everyone knows the talent's there. We've seen him do it before. But again, the hope is that they don't abandon the run fully here, because they're certainly committed to it. But again, maybe a more of an even split going forward. Next game on the docket, gents, Buffalo and New York. A couple nuggets here that I got highlighted. Le'Veon Bell, obviously his first game back in quite some time, looked pretty good. Obviously involved in the passing game as well. Jamison Crowder, dude, 17 targets, like 13, 14 receptions, couldn't crack 100 yards, which is an NFL record, I think, for the most targets and an under 100-yard performance. Smokey John Brown, man, he will live forever. I'm a huge John Brown truther. So I think, again, kind of going into the offseason, kind of a perfect pairing with Josh Allen's arm. So that made a ton of sense, and it kind of paid some early dividends last week. The last one here, Johnny, was Devin Singletary. Obviously, Shady McCoy shipped off to Kansas City. Frank Gore, some way, somehow, still getting it done in the league. But it looks to be, like the C's might be part. Man, it could be Devin Singletary's backfield. Obviously, Josh Allen gets it done on the ground too. So I'm not sure where you stand there, buddy.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like every year Adam Gase goes somewhere else and then just continues to prove that he's still a total donk. I mean, it's like, how many times can this guy just like find a wide receiver to give 6-yard receptions to? It's like he just like lives for it. It's
Loves it.
So annoying.
Dude, tell me you saw his post game, or when he basically said, "I'm the head coach. I'll do whatever the hell I want." Just Gase out here gasing it, bro, hard.
Oh, I know, man. And it's like, if he did like good things on the field, I would like love the way he handles pressers.
That
but
attitude,
it's like,
for sure.
He handles them that way after he does really stupid stuff. So he's so obnoxious. But yeah, I think Bell, the usage for Bell is awesome. I mean, he played, I think it was 100% of the snaps.
Yeah, or damn near close to it for sure.
Yeah, the only downside is like obviously 100% of the snaps in this Jets offense that's gonna run 50 plays a game is not the same as when he had 90% of the snaps in a Steelers offense that's going to score 40 points in a shootout. That's different. But obviously, the fact that he's going to get 23 touches a game and you're guaranteed it's going to be him running it in at the goal line, he's not going to get, vultured by Ty Montgomery. So, that's the big positive for him. He's just going to be super solid. But I mean, that they lost Quincy Enunwa, so, at least we know it's like probably just Crowder and Robbie going forward. I don't really think DT is, he's kind of dust. Mm-hmm. But the John Brown usage was sick. I mean, he ran like 40 or 50% of his routes from the slot, which was definitely not something we expected, especially with them bringing Cole Beasley in. It definitely seems like he is like the for sure focal point, and I liked him a lot this offseason. I wish I liked him more. Mm-hmm. Just didn't quite get there. But, I'm buying John Brown, That's the guy I would definitely want to be trading for if you can get value. Singletary's going to be weird. I think he played like 70% of snaps but had 4 carries. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the hell is going on.
I think he tacked on like 5 or 6 receptions as well or something like that, or 5 or 6 targets or something. Yeah,
it's just like this offense just like hates the running back.
Yeah, for sure. No, and again, it's gonna be tough because Josh Allen tends to get it done on the ground himself. But we had Uncle Sigmund Bloom on the show, gosh, a month or so ago at this point. He is he definitely stood out as probably one of the bigger Smokey Browns fans. So he's got to be stoked after the Week 1 performance. 10 targets, 7 receptions for 123 and a score. So Smokey Brown alive and well with a quarterback that isn't Joe Flacco, which is always fun. Nate, man, Smokey Brown, Devin Singletary. I think you kind of circled the wagons on Devin Singletary a couple times, man. You got to be somewhat enthused, or where do you kind of stand now, buddy?
Yeah, you hope the usage goes up a little more. Obviously, the guy proved that he can do some things in that backfield. Everybody shit on him early for that lack of athleticism, but as we've talked about before, going back to the college film, the player you see on tape doesn't look like the player that we're looking at the numbers of. And, of course, I'm going to get destroyed on Twitter for saying this yet again. I understand what I'm walking into. The usage clearly has to go up. Frank Gore's been washed. He's still washed. He needs to get past. John Brown, volume is king. I mean, volume is absolutely king. And if he's being targeted 10 times, even if it's by Josh Allen, you've got to be enthused by that. But what I want to say is Sam Darnold, with his 41 attempts, that ranked inside the top 10 for attempts last week. I realized that his yards per attempt were really low, but when you look at Robbie Anderson, he was 3 for 21 on 7 targets. And I know that the stat line looks like shit, but it was 121 air yards at a 17.3 ADOT. So that ranked in the top 15. So, again, this could have been a much different game for Robbie Anderson if some of these passes connect. So I'm not out on Robbie Anderson necessarily, but, man, I am not a fan of the Jets. I don't know what to say, and I don't think anybody really is. So It's all in on Crowder, apparently.
Yeah, Crowder and his 17 targets for less than 100 yards, man. That stuff's always very exciting especially for those in PPR leagues, man. Crowder in a PPR league. Washington.
You want to buy Robbie Anderson after next week when he gets shut down by Denzel Ward. Should get easier from there.
There it is, man. Washington, Philadelphia. Speaking of wide receivers, Terry McLaurin. Nate, I'm excited to pass the mic to you here, bro, in a little bit after we let Johnny say his piece, man. Terry McLaurin had himself a day, man. Scary Terry. Absolutely stunted on the Philadelphia Eagles. Imagine he was one of the most popular, if not the most popular waiver wire claims today in most of y'all's home leagues. Adrian Peterson, healthy scratch. Can't imagine he was excited about that. Darius Geis got the start, and then come to find out his opposite knee that he had surgery on or whatever is banged up, meniscus or something like that, so he's set to miss some time. So it's once again the Adrian Peterson show. Obviously, Chris Thompson, still a useful back, talking about PPR leagues. Trey Quinn was kind of there, kind of another late round dart for most of us this offseason as far as redraft is concerned. Miles Sanders, man, the box score wasn't there. I still feel pretty good about Miles Sanders. Obviously, going to take a few weeks. It could drag out, but I have no questions that he's the most talented back in that backfield. For me personally, just my 2 pennies. I think it's coming, just a matter of time. And Deshaun Jackson, man, talking about big performances. Dude shows back up in Philadelphia and didn't miss a beat. Johnny, man, were you in at all on Deshaun as far as DFS is concerned?
Oh yeah. I was surprised that he wasn't as popular. I mean, the whole preseason story for Djax was like they're just like practicing throwing bombs to him.
Yeah.
That was all they did. So, and Carson Wentz was one of the most popular quarterbacks, and just like no one played Djax. It was pretty odd. But yeah, no, I had a good bit of Deshaun. Terry McLaurin was who I brought it back with on those teams when I did game stacks. He ran as the wide receiver 1 all preseason. They bubble wrapped him, just like didn't play him in the preseason. It was pretty obvious that they had big plans for him. But I wasn't expecting this, not this fast. It was good.
Do you think the Terry stuff's sustainable, bro, going forward? Like, do you think he is the de facto one, or he just off of one performance, off-season narratives, all that? Like, he is that dude?
He's the one, but you got to remember, like, it's Case Keenum, and then if Dwayne Haskins comes in, he's going to be really up and down too. Is he going to get 5, 6, 7 targets a game? Probably. Is he going to put up this kind of performance every game? Probably not. I think he's going to have a lot more dud games mixed in there because of, the way that they're using him.
For sure. What else, bro? I apologize. I kind of cut you off a little bit. As far as Trey Quinn, as far as anything in the backfield of Washington or even Philadelphia. Miles Sanders, were you a Sanders guy at all?
I like Sanders. I just the price. If you can trade for him now after a bust, yeah, for sure. But I don't think he's ever going to be 60% of the snap type back because Doug Peterson hates your fantasy teams.
Very, very, very valid point, man. NATO, playerprofiler.com tells us Terry McLaurin, 6 foot 208, 4.35 wheels. Dude, just a 95th percentile spark athlete. So we know obviously he checked all the athletic boxes possible coming out of Ohio State, opposite our guy Paris Campbell here. So again, I think John said it perfectly, man. I think we all, given the way the Redskins kind of handled McLaurin this offseason, we all expected him to definitely mix in and produce to some degree. Not quite like this box score here, buddy. So you got to be stoked, right? I mean, this is a fun week if you had McLaurin anywhere.
Yeah, and Terry McLaurin is one of the guys that the Breakout Finder really liked. To John's point, look, Case Keenum came out and had a bananas game. I mean, again, that's a hard game to predict right there against Philadelphia for him to put up what he put up. But in the event that Dwayne Haskins ever steps in, these are two guys that played together back at Ohio State. So there's a little bit of rapport that they're going to carry over. Now, is Dwayne Haskins ready for the NFL game? I don't know. I mean, that's really yet to be determined. But with Case Keenum out there, if he's going to be throwing the ball 44 times a game, and Terry McLaurin's only pass competition is going to be Paul Richardson or someone of that ilk, I mean, you got to be a fan of what he's going to do going forward. He's probably going to be matchup dependent as a rookie in the NFL. I mean, he's got that long speed, so if the plan for Washington is to dial up bombs, then from week to week there's a chance he does something special. But overall, as a route runner in the intermediate game, the short area game, that's kind of yet to be determined for me against more NFL competition. But dude, it's so exciting to see these guys come out and do what they did. And to be honest with you, the NFL got him right as a third-round pick. I mean, he didn't have immense collegiate production. That was one of the reasons that a lot of people were off him early. But the NFL did not get him wrong in the third round. And a lot of these guys that went late in your rookie drafts, man, they're starting to really show out. And a lot of them were on the stage this weekend.
For sure, man. So again, as John said, bro, Doug Peterson definitely hates our fantasy teams here, man. I don't know if you got a chance, Nato, to watch the Miles Sanders snaps here. And again, I know you and I we're firmly entrenched in one Miles Sanders corner here. I know you and I got the matching Miles Sanders tattoos and stuff like that. You're obviously, Sanders is still a certain hold for you. Any kind of projections going forward, you're still keeping the faith.
Of course. I mean, they've got the draft capital invested in him. Nobody expected a 36-year-old Darren Sproles to come out and have a renaissance game. I mean, I would not have expected him to have, 12 touches on the day, 9 carries. I mean, he's ahead of Miles Sanders. I believe Miles Sanders had a touchdown that was called back also on the day. So, again, might have been a different day on the scorecard for Miles Sanders. Had some things, broken in his favor. But there's better days ahead for him.
For sure. Speaking of better days, man, Christian McCaffrey, man, I've been rock hard since Sunday, boys. Los Angeles Rams, Carolina Panthers. Christian McCaffrey was the 1.01 for me coming in as far as fantasy drafts are concerned. Certainly looks like that dude. Once again, Ron Rivera came out and basically said, something along the line of, it's really hard to kind of take the ball away from him. I know there was kind of a little concern this past offseason about, Rivera coming out and saying, hey, we want to kind of dial back his snaps a little bit. But the dude's pace, again, talking about Scott Barrett again, he was posting some stuff this past week about how, he's kind of slowly inching towards that, that Marshall Faulk, LaDainian Tomlinson, fantasy territory given his usage. And I think that 1,000 season is firmly in his sights, man. So very, very exciting week 1 for Christian McCaffrey. On the other side of the ball, as far as running backs are concerned, Todd Gurley, again, his coach came out and said there is no snap count, but the way he split work, Malcolm Brown getting all the goal line touches would certainly paint a different picture. So if you drafted Gurley in that second, late second round, where we're looking for that value stab, I wonder if you come away a little nervous about that. And obviously the pass catchers on both sides. What I'm very, very excited to get Johnny's takes on, man, because he definitely came out, fired up the old Twitter app, man, and was letting the Curtis Samuel shade fly, man. So again, DJ Moore came out, definitely commanded the targets. Looked like obviously the wide receiver one in that offense. So all those Curtis Samuel truthers, myself included, Johnny had a few words for you, man. So what do you what do you got for this one, Johnny?
No, for me, it's more just like everyone in the fantasy community trusting Cam Newton to support multiple pass catchers is just. I mean, this is a dude who throws for like 240 yards a game. They run the offense through Christian McCaffrey. It's not like we're going to see 2 other pass catchers other than McCaffrey every week do something. And then you have Greg Olsen back. He ran 39 pass routes, had 9 targets. I mean, I don't think any of these guys other than McCaffrey are going to be someone you can rely on week to week. And, the debate all offseason was like, should it be Moore? Should it be Samuel? For me, it was like neither. Like, I'm just not drafting these dudes because good luck figuring out when you're going to start them. Next week it's going to be Curtis Samuel takes an end around 60 yards for a touchdown, and people are like, oh, man, I wish I didn't bench him after that. But it's just going to be maddening because you just don't have a quarterback that's going to support these guys.
That's frustrating. What about on the Los Angeles side, bro? As far as I guess we could talk a little bit about the pass catchers. I don't think anything too out of the ordinary there. Again, cut back in the fold. Obviously Cooks, obviously Woods, but anything on the running back side as far as Los Angeles, man. Todd Gurley, where did you find yourself, Johnny? As far as those offseason headlines, were you looking for that for that second round kind of value stab at Todd Gurley? Is this surprising to you, seeing how this Ram staff is kind of handling his touches?
Yeah, so like at one point in the offseason, Gurley was like a 3rd round pick, and for me, like, I'm taking Gurley in the 3rd round regardless of what the risk was.
Right. Gurley could be like missing an arm, and you're drafting him in the 3rd round for sure.
And then he worked his way back into like the middle of the 2nd, and I thought that was pretty much where he should go. It has the risk baked in and the ceiling baked in, and I wasn't a big fan of taking him in the 2nd. I do think like I would be happy to trade for Gurley if people are selling him cheap right now, being scared. Like, I don't think Malcolm Brown is the goal line back. I think he's going to mix in. I mean, we saw Malcolm Brown vulture some touchdowns last year. I think, it just so happens that he took 2 in this game, and now everyone's freaking out about it. Gurley's not going to be 90% of the snaps. He's going to be like a 70% of the snap guy. But I still think that's pretty valuable in this offense. It's just not, it's not the Uber back like he was.
Right. Nate, where is your head at as far as the Los Angeles Rams, the Carolina Panthers after week 1, buddy?
Well, I mean, that's a tough secondary, number one. They were not going to get beat deep, and it's evident in the box score. But Cam Newton, man, that guy will put up a fucking stinker every once in a while. And he's just not the guy that you want to hitch your wagon to if you're looking for, week-to-week fantasy production. DJ Moore's clearly going to be targeted. Greg Olson's the twice-baked fucking potato. This guy's still out there playing, somehow. Christian McCaffrey will continue to be the go-to. The guy had He had 30 touches. I mean, he had 30 touches. That is so crazy. But that volume for him is going to continue to be there. And I think we all knew that this was the one guy you could trust. If you had to pick another, it was going to be DJ Moore. I mean, that was validated. 10 targets in that game. And then Curtis Samuel, man, his ADOT on the day was a 6.2. I mean, they turned him into Cordell Patterson. And I really hope that going ahead, we see more splash plays. The LA Rams are not the team you want to screw with in the secondary, and I think Cam knows that. He's not the best at pushing it down the field anyways, but if you're going to do it, I don't think you want to do it versus them. But I got to believe that if this is the trend going forward, Curtis Samuel feels more like a best ball option, where if he's going to have some of those big games, he's going to be one of those guys that you want to target. He had, I think, 37 yards after the catch on the day. So, I mean, obviously he's going to break away a little bit, but, man, it's just so hard to trust many people in a Carolina offense, and Cam Newton is just a fucking bummer.
No, I think Johnny said it the best, man. It's tough to envision Cam kind of supporting, multiple, fantasy relevant assets. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey is where that offense runs through, as John said. So, it's kind of a shell game as far as which wide receiver is going to have the big week. Obviously, it was DJ Moore's week 1. Kansas City and Jacksonville. Man, Patrick Mahomes looking like Patrick Mahomes to the surprise of absolutely nobody, just comes out and throws all over this Jacksonville defense, this vaunted Jacksonville defense. Damian Williams, Shady McCoy, that's probably going to be more of a relevant topic moving forward. Shady looked pretty good, man. Obviously very, very familiar with Coach Andy Reid. Tyreek Hill came out today. I believe he's going to miss at least up to 6 weeks with that collarbone, clavicle, whatever he's got going on, sternum injury. So it could be. I thought we lost someone like Mecole Hardman, but he is immediately relevant once more. Sammy Watkins, of course, had a monster day, hat trick, and a bunch of yards. On the Jacksonville side, Nick Foles goes down himself with a collarbone injury. I still kind of like some of these Jacksonville pass catchers. We talked up guys like D.D. Westbrook all off season. DJ Shark obviously caught the Nick Foles touchdown. So a bunch of different moving parts here. Johnny, touch on whatever you think is relevant for week 1, man, and obviously moving forward.
Yeah. Oh man. So brutal for like everyone that game stacked that game and just like sort of got it right, and then Foles dies, and then Tyreek dies.
Oh my.
And so all the game stacks are just dead. But yeah. So, I think to the point on Mecole, I mean, he's definitely a buy. It was surprising that he wasn't as popular of a waiver wire pickup.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to get 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks, maybe more if they end up putting Tyreek on IR.
Right.
With him playing the deep threat role. I mean, I don't think he's really a wide receiver set up to run like the intermediate routes, which I think we'll see a lot more of from Sammy. But the guy to put up a 150 and 2 could be Mecole. He's probably going to be pretty up and down though. He was super raw in the preseason and probably will continue, but they were using him, in the backfield and that kind of stuff. So if we see those kinds of touches, you get a floor out of him to go with it. But then the Jacksonville side, I don't think you're going to be able to own anyone other than DD. I mean, everyone was super stoked about Minshew. He's playing against like this garbage Kansas City defense, who didn't even prepare for him. He wasn't very good in the preseason. I mean, he's a limited pass thrower. And then Marquise Lee should get healthier. Good luck trying to pick who the wide receiver 2 is that does anything. But I do, Fournette's going to be a bell cow. It's just a matter of how many points they're going to score.
Yeah. Nate, so we got DD still relevant, maybe a touch on life support, man, a player that you and I kind of touted here and there. Again, Mahomes surprising nobody. Dude, Mikal hardly knew you, man. Nate. That was your tweet. Beautiful tweet. He's back though, buddy. Are we excited? Are we stressed out?
I mean, yeah, you got to be excited. We've seen Patrick Mahomes, man. One flick of the wrist changes the game. I mean, we talked about, or at least I said, that I don't see Marquise Brown bettering what he did last week at any point this year. Well, I definitely don't see Sammy Watkins doing that. And that was a huge week, but Mecole Hardman, very easily could have stepped into one of these opportunities here, and his day could have been, 3 catches for 105 and a touchdown. I mean, in the blink of an eye in this offense. So he's a player you definitely want to add. As far as like dynasty terms, everybody already owned him because a lot of drafts had either taken place early or when the Tyreek Hill, news was wavering back and forth pre-extension. Everybody was a fan of Mecole Hardman because they thought, oh, he's going to step into that Tyreek role. Okay, Tyreek's hurt now. He's actually stepping into that role, and Patrick Mahomes is firing on all cylinders as expected. As far as Jacksonville, I'm with John, man. I'm not in on anybody but DD. Nothing has changed since the preseason. Everybody felt that way. Leonard Fournette, man, the least efficient running back, man. His opportunity is at least still there. But, week to week, if you're going to have Gardner Minshew as your quarterback, like how much are you really going to trust Leonard Fournette to do anything, anything prevalent? The volume will be there, but he's going to be a super matchup-dependent running back right now without, a veteran quarterback and a bunch of young receivers or a cavalcade of guys that just never really succeeded where they were. And then, Marquise Lee comes back off injury. I mean, this is just a confusing wide receiver group to even pick through.
Yeah, Jacksonville could definitely be just filled with a bunch of landmines for sure. So as Nate and John both so politely said, it's really DD or you're just looking elsewhere, man. So we got next we got Indianapolis and we got the Los Angeles Chargers. Not a whole bunch to talk about here. More recently today, I know Hunter Henry, man, lost him again. I believe something with his knee. I don't know for sure exactly what the injury was, but he is done for the year. I believe there's some concern with Mike Williams as well. Big Mike Williams, he might be either lost for the year or missing a chunk of time. So really, it's just the Austin Eckler show, who looked like an absolute stud. I know Melvin Gordon's at home, man. Maybe second guesses some things. Other than that, with the Henry injury and then maybe the pending Mike Williams injury, it's all systems a go for Keenan Allen, who also looked pretty good week 1 on the Indianapolis side. The post Andrew Luck world, Marlon Mack looked like a legit bell cow himself. And kind of the news going forward is Devin Funchess is out. So is this, Johnny? Are you at all interested in whatever Deion Kane could bring to the table?
I do like Kane. He's a guy that I've always been interested in the preseason, was stoked to finally play him, had a huge preseason game. And I mean, the Colts have loved Kane. He's been like a guy that they've really been trying to bring back to health, to have a role. So I think, he's definitely going to get every opportunity to be that person, but it's going to be tough when you've got Doyle and Ebron and Hilton, who are probably going to be the focuses for Brissett. And I don't think this is an offense that wants to throw the ball a ton. And then the concern for Marlon Mack was that he just didn't do a ton in the passing game. I'm not sure how many games he's going to get the opportunity to carry the ball 25 times. No targets. I I don't even know how many pass routes he ran, but it definitely wasn't too many. So
right.
that's the concern there. He's going to be a guy that's pretty game script dependent. And then it's really nice to see Hilton getting the usage that he's getting with Brissett. Brissett was sort of up and down with Hilton in the past. Brissett was a guy that you always knew he loved to throw to the tight end. Well, looks like he's finally thrown to the wide receivers. That's nice to see for Hilton for sure.
For DFS, Johnny, did you land on Austin Eckler at all, man? He seemed like he was definitely an enticing play and certainly paid off.
Yeah, he was definitely a guy better. I mean, he's always a better DraftKings play than he is a FanDuel play. But he was kind of like, he came in at that weird pricing where he ended up less owned than Chris Carson by like a mile, which was pretty surprising. I thought they were both good plays, but people didn't seem to believe what the Chargers were doing this preseason. This preseason, it was like when the first unit was out there, it was 90% Eckler. I mean, it seemed like they were pretty set on him. I mean, he's basically getting the Melvin Gordon role. I mean, Gordon played like 70% of the snaps last year, and that's about what Eckler got this week. And especially, with Hunter Henry gone, the offensive line having issues, I think Eckler is going to be he's going to be a threat to catch 5, 6, 7 balls every week, which is awesome.
Yeah, if you stumbled into Melvin Gordon for redraft leagues, kind of in that 5th round, 4th round, 5th round, 6th round, wherever he ended up going in your drafts, and you didn't handcuff him with Austin Eckler, you're certainly in trouble, man. Eckler's looking like an early kind of season-long winner. Just again, as Johnny said, man, totally filling right into Melvin Gordon's shoes, getting that same workload, that same usage. So it's definitely all arrows pointing up for Austin Eckler. NATO, the Hunter Henry news sucks, man, but we got Austin Eckler. We got a couple players on the Colts side of the ball, man. Anyone in particular you want to touch on?
I mean, it seems obvious to me, but Mike Williams doesn't practice today. He's got the knee issue. Week 1, he exited with it. Hunter Henry not going to IR. They're hopeful they get him back this year, but he's going to miss significant time. I mean, obviously, Eckler right now is a boost, but man, Keenan Allen might be going back to the days of 15 to 17 targets a week. I mean, it's not crazy to think that he's going to get a boost too, and he saw 10 last week. And that feels like the floor week to week for Keenan Allen anyways in this offense. This guy's always pressing for targets. So I'm an even bigger fan of Keenan Allen at this point with this injury and sort of this decimated offense. Dontrell Inman will get a little bit of a boost. Travis Benjamin, a little bit of a boost. But really, I think Eckler and Keenan Allen are the two big recipients of this. And John touched on it too. Marlon Mack, man, no pass targets. Not a single pass target. Now, I realize they only threw the ball 27 times, but Nyheim Hines did not go away. I mean, that guy is not going anywhere. He had a bunch of targets last year. They clearly like his capability in the pass game. It's going to continue this year. Marlon Mack, this is the question. Is he going to put up a touchdown and 100 yards every game? Doubtful. He's going to have some tough games mixed in there, especially when you have Brissett at quarterback and not Andrew Luck. So, it's going to be a game-to-game thing here, but as long as his volume is up, that is the biggest plus for Marlon Mack.
Yeah, like I know Mack is a player profiler. Matt Kelly, fantasy mansion favorite there, man. So it's fun to see him kind of do a little something, and I guess the hope is go ahead, Nate.
No, I was going to say, by the way, man, now that you mention Matt Kelly, John, thank you for saying that you're looking forward to seeing Deon Cain, because I did a podcast with Matt Kelly last night, and I mentioned Deon Cain, and I was backpedaling with like a sword, just jabbing at him, trying to stay alive. And so he just completely shit on Deon Cain and did the most podunk redneck voice you've ever heard about how he came from Clemson, so he must be good, and goddamn, man. So I appreciate you being at least enthusiastic about the potential here.
We got... Yeah, dude, it's never a good sign when Kelly's got his little highlighter out, man, and he's checking off these players, man. So it's definitely a fun battle whenever you kind of go prospect versus prospect with Kelly here, man. Cincinnati, Seattle, Nate, your boys, man, the Seahawks.
Wow.
John Ross completely levitated, man. I forgot all about the injury history and everything else, man. He absolutely blew up week 1. Andy Dalton, again, selfishly for me, going back to my Scott Fishbowl team, man. Andy Dalton, my QB1 boys. Andy Dalton looked real good. Threw it up a bunch. Obviously, offensive line issues, Mixon exiting, no A.J. Green. Had John Ross, had Tyler Boyd. Andy Dalton looked pretty decent. On the other side of the ball, Tyler Lockett, I don't think got a target until the fourth quarter, late third quarter, something like that. Super weird usage for him. DK Metcalf, Nate, again, I know you got the poster somewhere in your room of him just shirtless holding a bunch of dogs or something like that, man. DK Metcalf had himself a bit of a week 1. And Johnny kind of mentioned it a little bit. Chris Carson still looked like that guy. So again, we got a couple different storylines to follow there. Johnny, which one you want to start with, man? Who do you want to talk about?
Yeah, so John Ross, for everyone who lost all their money for the last 2 years playing this guy, you finally made up on like 10% of everything you've lost. But no, it's nice to see that it looks like, I mean, he's sort of getting like it's cliche at this point to compare them to the Rams, and it's gotten really old. But he's kind of playing that Brandon Cooks role, the downfield threat who they're gonna take shots to, and that's it's a really valuable role if it is remotely similar to Cooks. I mean, if you connect 2 or 3 of those 5 or 6 deep balls, it's like paying off huge. But he did. I mean, he had a bad drop. He had drops in the preseason. He's had drop issues throughout his career. If he can correct that, and if Coach Zach is happy to just keep throwing in the ball, then maybe for once they'll have a coaching staff that doesn't just like bench someone the first time they do something stupid. And then the O-line. We'll see how the O-line does against. I don't know what the hell Seattle was doing. This weekend, but we'll see how the O-line holds up for the rest of the season. But at least Bengals seem to be okay. At least for week 1.
Yeah, but, are you concerned about? I mean, again, I don't believe Mixon practiced today. Obviously, Gio Bernard. We're talking about season-long redraft stuff here. Gio was another popular waiver wire snag, which I'm surprised he was hanging out there. I imagine in most leagues, obviously, the Bengals went ahead and paid him, which might have been surprising to some. So I guess people were envisioning that big Joe Mixon jump, but the Bengals, at least by their actions, opening the checkbook, wanted to get Gio involved. Man, are you all confident trotting Gio out there in a pseudo workhorse type role if Mixon is to miss, even if it's just a week?
Oh yeah. I mean, Gio's role when Mixon was out last year was amazing. I don't think the coaching change is really going to change that. They're promising running back that they drafted. They killed him in the preseason by giving him 5,000 carries coming off of an ACL. So, I think it's just going to be Gio. If you own Mixon, I would hope he sits. You just hate to see these guys, run these guys through injuries.
Yeah,
but,
rush back. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Lockett, man, it was a little concerning, the quote that he was like bothered by all the double teams. That's really not something you want to see when a dude gets blanked for 3 quarters, that the double teams were the problem when Metcalf is out there just crushing when he couldn't run routes this preseason. Again, Lockett stepping into that that quote unquote wide receiver one role. Obviously Doug Baldwin walking away from the game, and although they did draft DK Metcalf, and again Metcalf did look pretty good, definitely not the quote you wanted to hear from your wide receiver one. Nate, man, you got the mic, you got Seattle. Pour your heart out, man.
First off, DK Metcalf is the wide receiver one as far as I'm concerned.
Listen, tell him about it.
If this is going to continue, if Tyler Lockett is going to struggle with the thing that Doug Baldwin was destroying throughout his career, as an undrafted free agent, by the way, then DK Metcalf has a chance to battle him for targets all year long. This was a team that was already not going to throw the ball probably much higher than the very back end of the top 20, maybe in the top 15. We figured Russell Wilson was going to do much better than the 427 targets we saw last year. My expectation was that Russell Wilson was going to push 500 targets. If he's only throwing the ball 20 times a game, I find that doubtful. Tyler Lockett not being able to work around double teams is going to be a problem because we know that DK Metcalf is a raw route runner to an extent. He looked good. He was not running 9 routes necessarily in this game. So they found a role for him, but as defenses begin to roll their coverage to kind of take away what he's doing well now, and if Tyler Lockett is being double teamed, man, it is a very questionable situation. And as far as John Ross, what the fuck was going on in Seattle? Did they not even look once at him on the tape prior to this? I mean, Tyler Boyd kind of did what was expected. He was targeted, 8 catches, 60 yards. Yeah, I can handle that. But John Ross, and thank you, John, for mentioning his hands would look like shit with 2 drops, but 7 catches for 158 and 2 touchdowns. Every time I looked up, John Ross was catching the ball in the zone somewhere or down the field. I think he had a long of 55. I'm like, who the hell is going to cover this guy? John Ross looked like a bust for 2 years. Or at least the time that he was playing, he looked like a total overdrafted player. I still think he was overdrafted, but it's a dagger to Seattle's secondary to see a guy like this come in. And Andy fucking Dalton, 418 yards? Are you kidding me?
Let's go, Andy, man.
Are you kidding me? The red rifle, more like the red bazooka, came out and absolutely decimated the Seattle secondary. I wanted to turn the game off. Thank God Seattle pulled this one out because it was supposed to be just an absolute murking. Russell Wilson was supposed to carve these guys up. Limited passing game. Chris Carson did his usual thing. The 7 targets is super enticing to see. But what the fuck? Can somebody get out there and stop a guy like John Ross? If we're getting carved up by John Ross, who's next?
You got problems.
Dude, if what's his face from the goddamn Jets shows up with his 17 targets, he's gonna have a 400-yard game. Crowder's gonna kill us.
Yeah, Crowder's definitely gonna drag his nuts up and down the field, man. Speaking of nuts, and we can change subjects here a little bit, so Nate doesn't pop a blood vessel or 3 here, man. Obviously a bit of a sore subject, but man, Dak Prescott took his sack, man, and threw it on the field. Dude was just counting dollar signs all game, dude. Dak looked really good, man. I don't know, again, going back to the whole Baltimore-Miami thing, I don't know if the Giants are just a bad team defensively, whatever the case may be. Either way, Dak locked in, man. Completely money. Amari Cooper did Amari Cooper things for the most part. Michael Gallup is kind of the wide receiver and kind of the takeaway that I had on that Dallas team, man. He looks like a legit, wide receiver 2+. Like, he could have a real big season, especially for where he was going in redraft. So I was super impressed with Michael Gallup, man. Just looks like a real physical player. Colorado State, just a strong guy at the catch point. Obviously got it done week 1. Obviously we know Zeke is back. Tony Pollard, kind of parked for a little bit. Nothing to really talk about in that backfield. On the Giants side, it's Eli Manning. How long does he last? We got Evan Ingram, who looks like a legit top 3 tight end. Just going to be money all year long. And then of course Saquon Barkley still looking like Saquon Barkley for the most part. So John, not a ton to really touch on here, man, but would love to get your thoughts on the game as a whole.
Yeah, so I've been pushing the Ingram train for like months now. I mean, this dude is like an elite talent. He had such a sick rookie year. Then he's banged up all year last year. Everyone sort of like forgot that he existed. Mm-hmm. He's been my tight end 3 since like the middle of July.
Love that.
And I think, especially right now, the dude ran like, I think second most. Yeah, he ran 42 routes, had 14 targets. That's the type of usage that you hope for like a top 5 wide receiver. So, just keep giddy up. I mean, this is the type of guy where like if you can trade like a Travis Kelce or a George Kittle for Ingram plus, I'm doing it.
Yeah. No brainer.
And then the Cowboys offense is so sick. And I think the biggest thing is the offensive line is finally healthy. That O-line is like so good. They are unstoppable. And I think this is one of those we used to have in years past where you could stack a quarterback and a running back, Palmer and DJ and those kinds of years. Cam and CMC when Cam was alive. Right now you can play Dak and Zeke can get all the points from this monster offense, and it's just going to be so strong. And Gallup looked great, but at the same time, it's like who do you cover against this team? Like, good luck.
Yeah, no, and it's weird talking about the Cowboys in this light, but again, like John said, O-line's healthy, and again, Kellen Moore has the headset calling plays, and that was kind of the storyline all off season as well. A lot of the players came out and said how fun, how exciting, how up tempo, how different this offense is going to be. So if week one's any indication, man, again, Dak and the whole team just looking really, really, really good. Nate, again, not a ton to touch on here. Evan Ingram, Kellen Moore, Cowboys offense, man. Anyone else you want to kind of want to gloss over before we keep it moving?
I mean, there's not much to say. I think everything in this game was pretty obvious. The only one guy I would bring up would be Cody Latimer. Again, this is another one of those guys that the stat line isn't exactly evident of what took place. I mean, 8 targets was a surprise. 3 catches for 74, but 164 air yards, and he was making catches early in the game too. So, I mean, with Sterling Shepard in the concussion protocol, with Golden Tate still missing time, Cody Latimer's kind of a sneaky name out there.
I like it, man. Yeah, no, again, it's all this game was all about the Dallas Cowboys offense, so excited to see what they string together as the weeks go by. Detroit, Arizona, next one up here, almost at the end of the line here. Danny Amendola, I had written down he was the target leader, which is always kind of a disappointing way to kind of start things. The opposite of disappointing was TJ Hawkins, man, who looked like an absolute stud, totally bucking that rookie tight end narrative and that transition time. It just doesn't exist in TJ Hawkinson's world. Kerryon Johnson, I know, again, a polarizing player in his own right. We had our guy JJ Zacharyson on the show months and months ago, and that's kind of when the Kerryon Johnson conversation started for us. Dude seeded passing game work week 1. Obviously not a good look for someone that you want, that many were projecting as that value, bell cow in that 3rd, 4th round. As far as Arizona, Christian Kirk, another one of the Breakout Finders' favorites, another one of my personal favorites, drew 12 targets, which was, I think, 1 behind Larry Fitz. I know him and Kyler kind of have a bit of rapport, but Kyler, man, didn't really get things going until the late 3rd quarter, 4th quarter. So that might be kind of the storyline kind of going forward. I know many were kind of pushing their chips all in on Kyler for obvious reasons as far as his accuracy and his ability on the ground. So a slow start for Kyler and Cliff in that offense. Johnny, some notable players here, man. Would love to know where your head is at.
Yeah, so I mean, Hawk is so sick, and he was
nasty.
Sick in the preseason. He was crushing in camp. It was one of those, like, if you were paying attention, you thought this could be possible. I mean, he was like, just had the storyline all preseason, all camp, and they weren't forcing this guy to go out and like make blocks. Like, they're for the one smart thing that this Patricia-led team is doing is letting Hawk do what Hawk needs to do. And he ran 37 pass routes. He's used as a tight end, but they're using him as a receiving tight end, which is like so good for his year 1 outlook. And but at the same time, you see Danny Amendola being the target leader because Matt Patricia is just like, oh man, I couldn't imagine being a Lions fan. It would be so horrible. And then Kerryon runs like 20 passing routes. It's whatever at that point. Good luck sort of picking who they're going to use week to week. Next week it'll be Marvin Jones, who has 2 touchdowns, and then they play at the slowest snail pace possible. This was pretty much like the best case scenario for them to have an overtime game against the Cardinals. So you can expect all the fantasy production to go down from here. I hate this team. And then the Cardinals, Michael Crabtree will be getting up to speed. So, good luck picking a wide receiver. We saw Fitz and Kirk were super involved, but now it's probably going to be spread a little more 3 ways. But the David Johnson usage was awesome. I mean, they're throwing to him downfield. This is exactly what we wanted. Just not sure they're going to score a ton of touchdowns because this team's got some issues to figure out.
Yeah, for sure. No, and it's definitely. I know they were a fantasy darling for many. It was easy to kind of connect the dots, but reality quickly set in. Nate, we talked about Kyler, of course, man, and obviously Cliff coming to town, and of course way too much about Christian Kirk. We managed to bring up Christian Kirk every single week, or as often as we could. News, notes, thoughts, opinions, suggestions for this one, Nato?
Look, he was struggling a bit. Kyler Murray was as the game started. This is his first NFL game, right? So there's some transition that needs to take place. The one thing I will say is he had 3 guys go over 100 air yards, and I realized that he had 54 attempts, which is a lot. But they're not short area pass attempts, so he is trying to push the ball. Christian Kirk is one of those guys, again, very deceiving, 12 targets. 4 for 32, you might be thinking that he's averaging, 7 yards a catch, and that was the storyline. But Christian Kirk had 139 air yards, so they attempted to get him going a little more. But like you said, this is an offense that's going to be tough to pick week to week. You're going to have Crabtree coming in, Keyshawn Johnson seeing 10 targets. This didn't even incorporate Andy Isabella. Like, we don't even know when the Andy Isabella experiment might take off, too. So that's just going to add one more dimension to this game where you're trying to pick who it is. I think week to week it's Fitzgerald and Kirk are the 2 receivers that I'd be a fan of in this offense. Fitzgerald just seems to be a staple year over year at this point, so he's pretty true. But again, yeah, like John said, man, David Johnson, that is just incredible usage. You hope that it continues because they need some weapons and some guys to keep playing well.
Yeah, no doubt, man. So second to last game here, gents, we got San Francisco and Tampa Bay. Man, it was again Johnny kind of led off with Jameis Winston. He was a popular play, but again, talking about reality, man, the reality is that Bruce Arians probably isn't saving Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston is cheeks. What many of us figured out a season or two ago. I mean, again, I guess the idea is that you're saddling up with guys like Chris Godwin, guys like Mike Evans. Everyone was high on O.J. Howard. Everyone figured that obviously Jameis is under center, but the interceptions we're definitely going to follow. But Jameis did not look good at all. It's going to make definitely for a stressful season. In Tampa Bay. On the opposite side of the ball, Tevin Coleman banged up. Matt Breida was always kind of that mid-round value player that people were kind of opting for over Coleman anyways, and now it appears to be the Breida show. Obviously, Raheem Mostert, or as Scott Barrett tweeted today, Raheem must start. He's another one kind of behind. Nate shaking his head, man. He's all about those puns, man. So Breida, Mostert in San Francisco. As far as pass catching is concerned, George Kittle, target leader, to the surprise of nobody. Dude looks good. And then Dante Pettis, again, talking about polarizing players who kind of caught headlines. I know Kyle Shanahan was kind of pushing him all off season. He was going to kind of slot into that wide receiver 1 role. And again, just things weren't working out as fast as Shanahan would have liked. And is nursing a calf injury, which kind of slowed things down from week 1. So San Francisco pass catchers, man. I mean, again, the backfield's crowded. We got a good coach, I think. Jimmy Garoppolo, there's some question marks there, Johnny. Anything that you kind of want to highlight for either the Niners or the Buccaneers?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's like it was like 2 horrid quarterbacks just like crashing 2 trains into each other. I mean, that game was so bad. And it's like, we talk about ranges of outcomes for players in the NFL, and I don't think there's a player in the NFL with bigger ranges of outcomes week to week than Jameis Winston. I mean, next this Sunday he'll probably throw for 450 yards and 4 touchdowns, and everyone will say, "Oh, why'd I drop Jameis?" But that's just how he is.
It's his game.
He's Jay fucking Cutler. That is who Jameis Winston is, and it was like everyone this offseason forgot that he has this bottom. And then Jimmy just doesn't look like he's back from the ACL all the way yet. He doesn't look, he's hesitating. He's just not. There's a lot going on there, and if anyone can figure it out, it's Shanahan. But I wouldn't be shocked if we saw some Nick Mullins starts later this season.
Yeah.
And then The Raheem Mostert is an old inside joke from preseason DFS.
Okay.
I mean, this dude is like Raheem Mostert is probably like the preseason RB1 ever. I mean, this
Forever.
guy
Like, dude, enshrined in Canton somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, he has massive preseason numbers, and then he finally made it, onto a Shanahan team. He's in a perfect situation to be the RB2 in a Shanahan offense. I mean, this, one of the few offenses that can really produce two running backs is the Kyle Shanahan offense. So that, he's definitely a guy that people should be picking up more so than they are. Yeah. But it's and with Breida's injury history, I mean, there's a good chance that Mostert is the guy in a week or two. And then, Kittle, the targets are great, but until Jimmy gets his shit together, that's going to be maddening. And there is no wide receiver one in San Fran. I'm not sure there ever will be this season. I mean, you got 25 routes from Debo, 22 routes from Goodwin, 16 routes from Ricky James. Kendrick Bourne ran 8 routes. I mean, Debo would probably be a guy to stash. He's a nice guy to have in dynasty leagues, but I wouldn't be really stoked about any of these guys really breaking out this season.
Right. No, I think your concerns about. I'm excited to pass the mic over to Nate here because he gets a chance to tell people maybe I told you so about Jimmy G. But before I do that, I know earlier, Johnny, you mentioned Mecole Hardman on waivers and stuff like that. I know in the leagues that I'm in, I was surprised to see Mostert kind of go unclaimed for the most part. So people just weren't doing their homework, watching the preseason snaps. But he's a player. Totally agree with you, man. I'm glad you highlighted him as you did. Can definitely slide into that running back 2 role. And again, as you said, knowing that Breida tends to get banged up himself, man, just seems like a no-brainer. I'm surprised that he was kind of glossed over the way he was here. Nato, bro, the time is now, man. Jimmy G did not come out hot. Johnny laid out some pretty logical reasons why, but bro, throw logic out the door right now, man. Just put the flamethrower on and just let people know that we don't know who Jimmy G is.
There is no logic with Jimmy Garoppolo. What I have been beating this drum. I got beat a fucking hole in this drum, by the way. Jimmy Garoppolo has no history. There is no history to go off of. I mean, he has as much history as some of the backups in this league. I've never been a fan of his. And here's even worse for Jimmy Garoppolo, a quarterback that I think stinks for starters. When you put no weapons around him, and I like Deebo Samuel, but he's young, and he's a rookie, and Dante Pettis is basically doghoused for whatever reason. Dante Pettis, who was a second-round pick a year ago, is getting doghoused. When you put essentially no weapons aside from Kittle around him, it's going to accentuate the fucking stink that's coming off of Jimmy Garoppolo. So you either better get a nose clip or a fucking clothing pin clip and put it over your nose for the rest of the year, because I'm not really sure. We thought he was going to be great. I've not seen him play great, over the course of his career. There's been some games there for the Patriots. There were some games last year, but this isn't a quarterback that anybody was necessarily coveting. I know there was a lot of hype, but what was the hype about for Jimmy Garoppolo? And here we go. This was a game that we expected something, magical to happen, and then boom, one of the worst performances I've seen in a while. Absolute. If you are a Niners fan, you got to be sick to your stomach. This offense looks terrible. And Breida, I think Breida's a capable back. I get what you guys are saying about Raheem Mostert. I think Breida's going to get a lot of opportunities still. This is going to be probably a committee backfield. So, you can pick your poison here if you really want to invest in it. There's going to be a lot of touchdown dependency. As far as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, boy, I mean, Chris Godwin off to the races, I guess. I mean, I fucking slow this episode down a little bit. Mike Evans back down to earth. I don't know what to do with either of these offenses. Nobody's talking about Ronald Jones though. What happened there, huh?
He might be a thing. Ronald Jones might be a thing, man. Long story short, hold steady in the San Francisco backfield. Either talk yourself into riding the Jameis Winston roller coaster, because as Johnny said, that's going to be up and down all season long. You're going to get a 400+ yard outing, and then followed by whatever we saw week 1 here. Last one on the docket, boys. Sunday Night Football. We'll talk about this one. We will talk a little bit about tomorrow night's contest. We'll let Johnny plug what he's got to plug, and we'll all get the hell out of here. So the Steelers and the Patriots, man, I don't even want to talk about Antonio Brown. Obviously, we know what's going on there. Outside of Antonio Brown, man, the Patriots they don't even need Antonio Brown, man. Tom Brady looks, again, ageless. Josh Gordon is there. They're gonna tack on Gronk at some point this season, I'm sure of it. Julian Edelman, Sony Michel didn't have a good outing, but it doesn't matter because Rex Burkhead stepped up. The Steelers in general, man, there's a ton of questions there. Gilmore put the clamps on Juju for the most part. So a bunch of players here that I'm sure a lot of us kind of had fantasy hopes and aspirations tied to, and again, it was just another one of those one-sided contests here. So Johnny, what were your big takeaways, man?
Man, the Steelers were horrible, but
yeah.
It was not only were they just horrible, they came out fully flat, and then the Juju breakout didn't happen, and that's another thing in I was shocked how high everyone was on Juju stepping into that number one role for the first time. I think there were more question marks than people gave him credit for, and you wonder, can he do it without AB? I mean, he's still going to probably get 10 plus targets a game, so the volume will be there, but I think it's pretty clear he's not AB. Dante Moncrief sucks. I mean, let's just get rid of this dude. So hopefully James Washington starts getting, more of a role here. Washington's been so awesome in the preseasons. I think they just, so what if the guy can't run routes? Like, let's see what he can do. Good luck figuring out who you're going to play on the Patriots week to week. Has there been a worse year for running back and wide receiver on New England than this year? I mean, this is for sure the worst.
Yeah, I don't know what the takeaway is. I mean, I imagine, given what Michelle did week one, I imagine we're in store for a big Sony Michel bounce back. But again, Rex Burkhead can still play. I think last year, the year before, he's been fighting injury and stuff like that. But he's definitely someone that can get it done. And again, when and if Antonio Brown does play, it just adds a whole nother layer to those pass catchers, as Johnny kind of alluded to. So a good team, but for fantasy purposes, it's probably going to be frustrating more times than not, man. Nate, man, I got a book of just poetry that I wrote for Josh Gordon, but we'll save that for another time, man. What do you want to talk about here before we start to wrap things up?
Man, I want to touch on James Washington for a minute. Again, I've been focusing on these air yards on this episode a lot to try to kind of illustrate sort of opportunity for some of these guys and how these games could have looked different. And 2 for 51 on the stat sheet makes you happy because he had a long catch of 45. But when you look overall at what he had on 6 targets, he had 169 air yards in this offense. So he was being targeted way down the field. I did a pretty big write-up about James Washington and why I'm pro James Washington. I posted it over at Patreon. You can check it out, patreon.com/Breakout Finder. There's a big community going on there. Check it out. But that's kind of my takeaway. This offense looked inept. It did not look good at all. Big Ben looked out of sync. Juju was bottled up for the most part. I mean, he escaped the game with usable numbers in fantasy. Not what you expected when you took him in the second round of most of your drafts. If you traded for him in Dynasty, you probably made a deal with the devil to get him. And like John said, my God, who the hell do you pick in this offense? And that's excluding Gronk. That's excluding potentially Antonio Brown. I don't want to pick a running back necessarily. I got to believe Sony Michel is going to continue to lead the backfield in overall carries. It could vary. It might not be 15 every week. You could have a week where it's 18 and a week where it's 11, or 10. It's going to be very hard to trust. And again, not targeted, not a single target. So a healthy Burkhead, a healthy James White means that Sony Michel may struggle mightily for passing targets. And in PPR leagues, man, that makes him a difficult play on top of the fact that we can't predict what his usage is. So that's kind of the takeaway. James Washington, and I can't play anybody in New England. Tom Brady looked like an Adonis yet again.
Yeah, he looks pretty good, man. This New England team that we all know and love and know and hate. I mean, dude, Bill and Tom might just run off another 5 or 10 years. Who knows? Tomorrow night, boys, Thursday Night Football, the 12th of September. We got Tampa Bay. We got Carolina. John, give the folks one or two things you're looking for. Nate, do the same, and then we will wrap this thing up.
Yeah, I think Greg Olsen, you just want to monitor what's going on with the back soreness, but Tampa Bay is always a team to target with the tight end, and had just about as good a usage as you're going to get in the league. I mean, he's still 100 years old, and he's not going to put up 150 receiving yards like he used to. But if you're going to get 7, 8, 9, 10 targets against the Bucs, I mean he's a top 8 tight end on the week, and people forget that he exists, I think. And then, on the Tampa Bay side, I mean, I think this is one of those where if you have a league where you can drop a player that has, after they've played, you want to stash Rojo, drop a defense, pick up Ronald Jones. If he continues to get 40+% of the snaps, then that means it's trending up. You want to hold on to him. If he sucks again, then you can, like he used to, then you can just cut bait, and there's, no harm, no foul.
Cut him without consequence, man. NATO, bro, on the Carolina side, man, I got to know, are we going to get some sort of Curtis Samuel redemption here, man? I can't log on to Twitter and see my guy Johnny, man, talking about Curtis over here.
Man, I wonder. I think this would be an opportunity for Carolina to try to push the ball downfield different than they did against the Rams. Again, the Rams are not the defense you want to do it against, so maybe they weren't going to show too much of that. I mean, in an effort to win, you would think they would have taken a shot downfield in a close game. It's a game-changing thing, especially with a guy like Curtis Samuel. I think that DJ Moore is going to continue to be that weapon if you're going to seek one in this offense. Christian McCaffrey is going to do what he did before. But I like the Rojo take. I mean, reality is if we saw his usage, he played beyond expectation. You start mixing in a little bit of the pass game. If Jameis can get the downfield work going, if we get a big Jameis game, that could really unlock Rojo in this matchup. That's really the question. If they're bottling up Jameis Winston middle of the second quarter, fuck, man, it's gonna be a long night for Ronald Jones. But if it's all really hinged on Jameis Winston in this game, but man, I don't know. It's tempered expectation for Curtis Samuel.
Yeah, I feel, man. Listen, man, boys, covered a shitload of ground. Johnny, again, brother, thank you so much for stopping by. Legit, all jokes aside, literally one of the sharpest dudes that you can follow. John, dude, tell them where they can follow. Tell them where they can find you, all your work, what you're doing, all that good stuff, man. Plug what you got to plug, dude.
Yeah, man. So headed over to the Quant Edge with Elliot Chris this year. Ryan Hodge and I do the DFS Power Hour podcast. It's generally Friday nights, depending on who our guest is. We will have Scott Barrett on this week. So if you subscribe to the Quant Edge this season, you get the Power Hour podcast as a part of that. And then you also find me in the chat talking shit about your teams that you post and trying to help everybody get better.
There you go, man. It's all about that. You offer them that motivation is what it is, dude. You got them. You knock them down just to build them back up.
You have to.
Something like that. Nate, bro, tell us all about the different kind of cupcakes the wife and kids laid out for you, man, and get us out of here, dude.
This episode was going to go a lot differently than this, but it worked out the way it did. John, man, he came on, honestly, in short notice for us, man, and murdered this episode.
Absolutely,
as
dude.
Anticipated. Ryan had nothing but good things to say about you coming on, and, of course, you come on here and obliterate it. People, if you like the podcast, this podcast has been getting way more listens than we ever thought it would. Help us out. Go on the iTunes account, write a review, tell us we suck, tell us you like us, be honest, do whatever you want to do over there. Check us out over on Patreon again, patreon.com/Breakout Finder. We've got a community that's building up over there, which is very cool. And Matt Kelly announced it yesterday, but the Breakout Finder app development is starting to happen. There's things moving forward with that. I know people are like, where the fuck is the Breakout Finder? I don't know where the Breakout Finder is.
It's hiding.
Okay?
It's hiding.
If I don't know where it is, you guys definitely don't know where it is, but there's big things coming with that, man. So a lot of fun stuff left in the season. We're only 1 week in, and Jimmy Garoppolo still stinks, so that's good to know.
Johnny, appreciate you, brother, man.
Of course, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on, man.